So moving on to price and demand from the break-even point analysis. So stationaries are basic needs for everyone, especially from the educational purposes, which means that everyone needs them over time. So the difference is the demand will increase at the peak time, where usually customers need them at the first day for their study, like the back to school promotions did by most stationaries provider. Therefore, this figure in the slide shows that the relationship between price and demand. The more the demand is, then the price will decrease. So the trend in the graph is to ensure the constant selling amount throughout each month, because if the demand is going down, then it will affect the cash flow, especially for debt funding. Thus, to alter the situation here is by putting up the price amount at the event of less demand, which conclude that WRITEON is subject to price dependent on demand. So, WRITEON consider two type of interest, which is simple interest and compound interest. And we also doing our research on two most best loan provider, which is from Bank Rakyat and Public Bank. So Bank Rakyat provide interest, but only lowest interest rate, but only for public sector, which offers 2.31% of interest rate. However, the best what we consider the best interest rate of bank from the bank provider is from Public Bank itself, which is 3.99%, and it's because it's open for all sector. So as we can see here, there are two calculations for both bank, which is simple interest and compound interest. And the best here is simple interest for Public Islamic Bank, which required us to pay 200 per month in the period of 5 years. So here's the proof of the bank, the most best loan provider. So for Public Bank here required us to pay 11,995 at the end life of a loan. While for Bank Rakyat only required us to pay 11,155 ringgit if only our business is under public sector. Next, the best investment source is of course Amanah Saham Bumiputra, which is ASB, where the interest rate stands with 4.25% to 10%. So here's the calculation of simple interest and compound interest, and of course again I mentioned the best interest for investment is the compound interest, where we can see here the difference between the interest amount of per annum is simple interest shows that the amount is 3,255, while compound interest is 3,385 ringgit and 80 cent. So there's quite a lot differences here. So the best one is compound interest for investment transaction. So moving on to cash flow diagram. So as we can see here in the slide, the positive side shows that we have received the total amount of 10,000 ringgit where we loan from the bank, and the next negative side of the cash flow shows the amount that we need to pay, which is 2,400 ringgit in 5 years. So the next one is cash flow diagram for investment transaction. So different from earlier diagram, the negative side shows that we invest 12,000 ringgit, and the next positive side is where we receive that amount of interest, which is each year we will receive around 3,385 ringgit and 80 cent. Next part of this presentation is will show us the cash flow for single cash flow, uniform, and arithmetic gradient series. So this one is a single cash flow. Single payment method can be denoted as F over P or P over F, which is the reverse factor, and it is the most fundamental factor that used in engineering economic analysis. So this factor shows that the accumulated amount of future amount after n period from present worth P with interest compounded each time per period. So here's the example in figure 4. Figure 4 shows the cash flow diagram using FP factor, and the present worth that we invested is 12,000, and the next F, which is the future amount, is where we gain and accumulated from the first year. So we can use the stated formula here. For the first year, we gain 12,855 ringgit. Until the fifth years, we gain the total of 16,929 ringgit and 16 cent. For the PF factor, we can use it to find P from the amount of F given occurs in the end period in the future. So in other words, it is the reverse situation called single payment present worth weight factor, and can be calculated with the formula, with a special formula. Next is a uniform series factor, where also can be denoted as P over A or A over P. So it can be calculated using the special formula of the factors itself. And in this slide shows the example on how we can find the A value from the future amount given. So the amount of A could be calculated using F by using the formula stated in this diagram. So the future amount in the end period, which is at the fifth years, is 16,929 ringgit and 16 cent. So by using the formula given, we will get that the A value is 2,936 ringgit and 50 cent. So that is the annual amount of the cash flow. Throughout the diagram, it will be the same amount for 5 years. For arithmetic gradient factors, arithmetic gradient is the cash flow that depicts the increment or the decreases by a constant amount in the cash flow itself, and the gradient can be denoted as G in the formula. So there's a specific formula for P over G, A over G, and also F over G. So from this slide, we can see the example where we required to find the P total from the given annual cash flow and the gradient cash flow. So both are added up and we will gain the P total is 24,000 ringgit. So as we can see here. So to find a gradient here, we can use the A over G formula if they are given the annual value itself or any other value such as P or F, so we can find the gradient from there. So here's the concept of equivalent. As we can see, there is two type of cash flow here, which is first the final financing, a personal financing point of view, and the next one is the alternate way of defining the equivalence. So what does it mean? What does it mean by concept of equivalent? So the meaning is a cash flow can be converted into another type of cash flows at different points of time to an equivalent value of a common reference point. So equivalent is dependent to the interest rate. So as we can see here, there are two formula for calculation for F equal to P and P equal to F. So this is the slide shows the example. The question is find the present P amount of the third year if given the future amount of for year 5 is 16,939 ringgit and 16 cent with the fixed interest of 7.125%. So the present amount is 14,752 and 10 cent as shown in the previous slide. So now we will enter the discrete compound interest chapter. So the first one is we'll talk about the nominal and effective interest rate. Nominal interest rate, also known as the state interest rate, where it considered the simple interest including the projected rate of inflation. So in this slide shows the loan transaction and investment transaction that involves the nominal interest rate. So how are we calculating it? By using the formula here. So the total, this is the example for the loan transaction. The loan that we borrowed is 10,000 ringgit with the normal interest rate of 6% compounded semi-annually. After the total of 5 years, the amount will be paid off. So what does it mean by compounded semi-annually? It means that in a year, it will be compounded 2 times. That's why it's called semi-annually. For a year, every 6 months, it will be compounded. The amount that we applied will be compounded. So this is the formula. So after applied the amount, we will gain 15,938 ringgit and 50 cent. And the total and that is the total debt that we will need to pay off after the life of loan. And the next one is an investment transaction. So we will use the same formula, and the only differences is to minus the total investment, which is 12,000 ringgit, to know what the value that we are gain, or the profits that we gain from the investment. So here we can see that the total interest that the company accrue for 5 years is 8,811 ringgit and 72 cent. So let us moving on to my last part of presentation, which is the effective rate. So here's the formula of where we can find the effective rate. What makes it's different from nominal interest rate is that effective rate on the other hand can caters the compounding periods during a payment plan. So effective rate is more than nominal rate. So it is used to compare the annual interest of a loan with the various compounding periods such as weeks, months, or even year. So here's the formula. I is the effective rate, R is the nominal rate, and M is the number of compounding period per year. So this is the example. So assume that there are two offers, investment A and B. So investment A will pay us 10% interest compounded monthly, which is in 12 months per year, and investment B pays us 10.1% compounded semi-annually, which is between 6 months once. So comparing both, we will yield this amount, which is for investment A, we will gain 10.47%. For investment B, we will gain 10.36%. So from the differences between investment A and B, we can see that investment B, even though it give us more interest rate, which is 10.1%, but it's still given us the total effective rate of 10.36%, which is lower than investment A because it didn't compound it more than investment A, while investment A compounded monthly, which is every month it will be compounded. So the better one in here is the investment E. So that's it from me. Thank you. Moving on to Clara.